As a real estate agent, you're constantly chasing the next deal. There's nothing, you're not building equity, you're not doing anything, right? So to me, that was a big factor to getting into apartments with the big picture goal of being full scale private equity at some point, is because you're building something that you can eventually sell and you can eventually retire from.
Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome. We got, the fact that you're smiling right now in this real estate market tells me that you're better than the most. So we got my man in the house. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing good. So, we connected recently. I've followed you for a little bit, so I don't know too much about you. So why don't you tell the audience kind of your story and how you got here?
Yeah, so my story, so I'm 30. I started my first company when I was in college. I was 19. It was a playground construction company. So I hired a couple of my buddies, and in the summers we would go around and we'd build playgrounds at parks and schools and subdivisions and basically the playgrounds that you see, all commercial playgrounds. I guess we did some residential playgrounds as well, and then we did some decks. We painted some houses. So sort of did a mixture. Basically, we do playground work, and then when we were slow with the playgrounds, we'd go knock on doors and we would paint decks and stain decks and do that. So it was a ton of fun. And then so that would have been, let's see, I was 19, and then I was 21. I got my real estate license, and I started selling houses just as a real estate agent. My big picture goal, like when I was younger, and I guess still is today, but was to get into private equity. It looked like fun, and it always seemed like fun to me. But I wasn't, I didn't go to Michigan or to Harvard or one of those places and go to New York and do like the big institutional scope. So to me, it was like, okay, how can I get exposure to private equity without going that route? And I thought maybe real estate. So I got my real estate license, and I thought maybe that would expose me to it somehow. And turns out it did. It actually worked out perfectly. So I did. I was 19, started the playground company. And then I was 21, got my real estate license. Those overlapped like a year. It took me 9 months to sell my first house. Then I sold my first house. I was in school at the time too. So during this whole process, school kind of took a back door. I ended up going for, full-time for 3 years, part-time for 4 or 5 more years. And then I dropped out because it was just, I was done at that point. But, So playground business when I was 19, real estate license when I was 21. This was 2015. And then in 2017, I discovered multifamily. And I don't remember exactly what led me towards it or where I saw it or whatever. But I think it was when I was at the real estate office, another agent, he was selling some big house, and his client was a commercial developer. And I was like, that seems fun. And like clearly the guy does well. So then I started to look into that more, and then I met another guy locally that was doing it, and he was actually a couple years younger than I was, and I was, 23, 24 at the time. So I thought, okay, if this guy who's 2 years younger than I am can do it, there's no reason I can't. So started learning to listen into books, podcasts, learning everything I could, and then in 2019, I sent a mailer out to 500 apartment owners. The first mailer landed on one of them landed on a 56 unit apartment. And then the broker was a family friend. So I went direct to the seller, but they just sent it to their broker. The broker emailed me and said, hey, this is a family. They're getting out of the business. These properties have never been sold before, but they have 11 others. Do you want those too? And I just told them yes, blindly. And so it ended up being 232 units. It was 12 properties, and I wrote the first offer for $13.5 million, and I had about 50 grand in the bank and had never done a deal before.
Okay, hold on. So, how many properties had you sold as a real estate agent at this point?
A decent amount. I did okay as a realtor. I was selling like 10 million a year, so probably 20
Okay.
houses a year. So I had
Did you
sold
have any? Did you have any investment properties before this?
no, zero.
Okay. So your experience was I had sold some properties, and I started this business in college, and then now $13 million worth of real estate. I'm going to figure it out.
Exactly.
So okay, before I want to hear the whole story, was there? Look, I say yes to things all the time, especially in my younger days. Was there any part before the yes or after the yes when you thought, "What the hell am I doing?"
Not really, because it sort of just it worked out.
Okay,
It didn't get
okay,
to the stage. It didn't get to the stage of like being in trouble.
okay. I get what you're
So
saying. Yeah.
so it never like it was always just like this is going to plan.
Okay. All right. So you write the offer for the 13 million, and then what happens?
So I wrote the offer for 13 million, 13 and a half, and then they countered at like 16 something. And so then it's like, okay, this could be real. So I brought it to the guy that I mentioned that had was a couple years younger than me. He was partnered with a few other guys that had some gray hairs, right? They had been in the business, they had bought, syndicated a bunch of deals. And so I brought it to him, and then he basically led the deal from that point, and I kind of just rode the coattails. And so we ended up getting it under contract. It was a complete ordeal because there was 6 family members involved, but we ended up getting it under contract in March of 2020. So this was November 19 is actually the day before opening day, hunting season, that I wrote the offer. And then we got under contract 4 months later, which was crazy to think about. We got under contract. They put up the earnest money, so they did I think 300,000 non-refundable day one. And so that was great, right? Without that, it would have been very difficult to get the deal. I didn't have that money to do it. I didn't know who I would go to get that money, and it sort of just worked out. And then, so we went under contract just before COVID shut everything down. Like, we did our due diligence tours on Friday, walking every unit, and on Monday, the entire state of Michigan shut down. So it was a pretty chaotic time. And then, banks required, okay, all these COVID reserves and everything else. And then the seller actually came to us and said, hey, we're expecting you guys to like retrade. Like, are you going to ask for a price reduction because of everything going on? And we weren't at the time, but we're like, well, if you're asking us if we're going to, like, clearly you're okay with it. So I think we asked them for like $2 million off. And I if I remember correctly, I think they gave us like 1.8 off. Like, I don't entirely understand why, but they did. And then while we were under contract, so then we had a 90-day period or whatever. Obviously, we hit with COVID delays over COVID delays, just constant. And I think in May, we had another local group that heard about it, found out we were under contract, and wanted to buy all of them from us. And we said, well, we don't want to sell everything to you, but we'll sell you some of them. So we ended up selling 8 of the properties in a double closing to 2 different buyers for $1 million for profit, and then we kept the other 4. We sold 3 of them a year and a day after we had closed on them. So we did staggered closings, like a building a week from August to October. It was like, this building, close this one this week, this one next week, because they're all different entities and different. So it was an ordeal. But August to October, we did staggered closings and closed them all. And then we had sold the 8 and kept the 4. And now we've gone full cycle on everything. The one we still have one 20-unit deal. We had paid $1,250,000 or $1,300,000 or so, somewhere in that range for that one. And we refinanced it and appraised for $4.6 million. So it was a deal.
If you just had to guess, how much profit have you made off the whole deal? If you just threw out a number out there.
Me personally, total, like a couple million, several million.
Okay.
Me personally is less than $1 million, but might be 400 or 500 ish, give or take.
Mm-hmm. So your percentage in the deal was significantly smaller. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So my
But
percentage of the double closing wholesale part of it was 15%. And then my percentage of the deals that we kept was 10% of the GP. And so then the GP on those deals ended up being 50%. So, it was a 50% promote, right? So, and the guy that I partnered with, the way he structured the one that we still own was with a 20% buyout to all the investors. So it's like at any time he could buy all of the other investors out for a 20% annualized return. So when we refinanced, he had bought all the other investors out with the property. So today I owned 7.5 or something percent of the deal.
Okay.
But yeah, very small.
There's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot there, but I'm more interested in. I've always, for the life of me, especially because I spent many of my years in real estate, flipping a house or which I did Airbnb for years, at large scale and small scale, feels so monotonous to me. I'm not saying that you can't get wealthy that way, but I look back on that deal, no matter how much percentage you had, the intangibles from it, your life will never be the same because of that deal. And in a regular scenario, it could have took you 10 years to do a deal like that if you would have started small. As you sit back now and look at it, on that vein, like what's your context to anybody that's out there getting started?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I look back and it's like, and I've had other people tell me like, wow, you got screwed. Like you should have gotten way more of the deal. And to me, it's, it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Would have been great. But the amount that I learned and the context and the people and just the process that I learned from that. I mean, so we bought that deal, or we did that deal. And then from August to October, but in May, I got another deal under contract on my own. So it was a 24 unit that we actually just signed a PA to sell last week. So a 24 unit with 10 vacant units that I bought on my own, or I syndicated on my own in November, and then I bought another one in February. So it's like from that deal, I learned the process, and by the time that deal closed, I had already had 2 more deals under contract. And then that eventually closed. One we've already gone full cycle on, that we bought in February of 21. I paid $1.8 million. We just sold it for 2.75. It's like a 22% net IRR to LPs with a 50% promote. So,
and how old are you?
30.
Okay. So the same guys that are complaining that you got screwed over are the same guys that would still be doing the same thing 20 years from now, and you're at 30 doing deals like these. And so like perfect example is like I put a deal together. I've never shared personally because it just happened last year. I just had a guy come to me and said, I've been trying to sell this business for years. I can't find a buyer. And I was in a meeting with a group of people, and I just said, I can find you a buyer in like 5 minutes. And he goes, who the hell do you think you are, you cocky son of a bitch? I said, no, do you want a buyer or do you not want a buyer? I don't understand. Do you want a buyer or do you not want a buyer? He goes, I want a buyer. I said, okay. So I set up the Zoom call the next day. Cool. I just got off the Zoom call. I disappeared for 6 months and ran my businesses. I didn't even know anything was going on. I get some money wired into my account, and I go, what is this? And they go, oh, yeah, that deal closed. And I'm like, what deal? What are you talking about? And they go, the deal that you introduced us. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, well, hold on. Let's unpack this. What deal closed and how much money did it close for? And they go, oh, well, it was the largest deal of my career. We sold a $70 million company. And I go, excuse me? What? And so I said, can I see the data on these deals, right? And so I go see it. And let's be honest, I got screwed out of some money because I didn't know. I wasn't even expecting money, so it doesn't matter to me. I got paid a little bit, nothing crazy. But
Yeah.
the brokers, I mean, they made, 120x. I mean, they made some straight cheddar, like real big stuff.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, oh, you got screwed. You got screwed. And I'm like, I didn't even know that was possible. And now I do. And now that happened. So the credit and the understanding that that's possible tells me that I can go do that myself. And I don't care.
Right. Yeah, and it's huge.
Like,
I mean,
everybody's just looking at short term. They're looking at short term.
Yeah, exactly. I've always kind of looked at that way. It's like, in general, you're not going to get rich off of one deal. And so it's, and for my first deal to be 232 units, like what it did for me. So I was a real estate agent. I was selling like 10 million a year. I was taking home like 200 grand. Right. So I was doing okay. Right. It wasn't, I was perfectly happy, or, I wasn't perfectly happy, but I was doing good by most standards. But on that first deal, when the first part of it closed, I made over 200 grand, like right there. It's just a wire to my account. And so it's like, okay, that's a year of working as an agent. Like now I don't have to go work as an agent. I can just focus on the apartment business full time. And so that was huge because it gave me that time and I guess the confidence. It's like, okay, worst case scenario, I got a year of runway or 2 years of runway on what my living, I was spending maybe 100 grand to live at the time. So it's like, okay, I got 2 years of runway. If I can't buy something in 2 years, then I'm an idiot and I'll just go back to selling houses. Like you don't have to be a rocket scientist to sell houses. It's super easy.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not like insanely easy, but it's a very low barrier to entry. So I always had that. It's like, I still have my license today. It's like if at the time it's like, okay, if I can't buy a deal in 2 more years, but I just did one and I got on my first mailer. Granted, it's like, a lot of delusion, but it worked out and it's worked out still today.
I was listening to a podcast a couple years ago and this guy said, he goes, I've never bought a real estate deal that I've held on to for 7 years plus that I've lost money. And he goes, all you guys don't pay attention. He goes, I've bought hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate. And, the fact of the matter is, my big takeaway a couple years ago was too many people are getting into investing, right? Just in general, to save their life instead of enhance their life. Like, this is not even in business. Like, these things take time. And it's not something that's going to just happen overnight. And so if you approach it with the right scenario or the right energy, it's going to compound over time. And, you've watched regular people just buy a house a year, and stock it, stay. I mean, I always remember the story. My mom worked for a guy. His grandfather passed away when he was 16. And his grandfather left him some money. And over the span of 20 years, he bought every single family house in a 4-street radius in Southeast Texas. He owns the entire street. He's never worked a day in his life, and he fishes in Montana and Alaska the whole year.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's one of those things that's simple but not easy, I would say. Mm-hmm. But it takes a lot of discipline.
And why is it not easy?
Because it's like you need to know the process, right? Like I talk to people about it and friends of mine who are not in real estate. And it's just such a foreign concept, so much of what I do. So it's like you need to have that exposure to it somewhere in go and learn that process. And it's, for me anyway, it's very hard to learn the process without doing it. I'm like you can tell me something, but I got to do it to really know it. And then to be able to do it confidently. But I think that's the part that's obviously not easy, but it's a simple numbers game. It's like, okay, I can buy this deal for 50 a door, make these improvements. Now it's worth 90 and then we sell it. Or if we were to hold it or whatever, but it's like, when you're able to break the math down, it's very, very simple, but it's just going out and executing on that simple vision and having the knowledge and the confidence and the contacts and everything to be able to do that.
So I think that for me personally, and maybe I'm a different cat, like if I were to invest in you or somebody else that I trust, I don't actually need to see the deal at all. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
That's
to
true.
me.
As an LP, you don't.
You know, I'm a person. I'm a person, and I invest in people. Like the jockey is the king, right? Like,
Yep.
if he's got a good track record, it's great. Well, here's the problem. The problem is there's a lot of people that portray themselves. Syndication, especially in the last couple of years, especially with the way the market shifted, you know, has got bad names. Same way private equity does. I think a lot of
For
people in
sure.
short-term understanding. I have my own. I've seen a lot of where the bodies are buried personally.
Yeah.
And it's just mind-numbingly to me. You know, what do you think that a traditional person from the outside looking in has wrong about syndication right now?
You know, I don't know. It's hard because it's we get so much in the bubble of it. So it's like you see everything and you notice everything. But I think the regular people that are LPs are not seeing this stuff. Right? It's like we're reading the real deal every day. We're on Twitter every day, and it's like you see the news cycle that we're subscribing to or that we're interested in. Whereas most of the LPs, the true LPs, I think, and unless they're like institutional level and that's all they do, but if they're out there working a W-2 job, like they don't have time to care about what some idiot in Texas foreclosed on 2,500 units, like unless they're in the deal. But from what I've seen, most people in general still have no clue about what's going on with all the scumbags that have done stupid stuff over the last couple of years, and now they're getting burned. But unless they're in the deals, it's generally not talked about, I guess. So for me, for syndicators, obviously it's become like a derogatory term over the last 2 years, I would say. But it's sort of like everything, right? There are a ton of people in it, and there's a ton of people that are trying to be in it. People will buy one building and it's like, yeah, technically they are a syndicator, but they'll portray themselves as like, they're doing something great, or they're a co-GP on 200 units and they'll say they have 30 million of AUM or whatever. But it's hard to, I don't get too focused on that. I sort of just stick to what I'm doing, do the right thing, and do the right thing for our investors, rather than I don't like to get caught up in the weeds of what other people are doing. I don't put out there like, oh, this guy is an idiot. Like I just sort of avoid that the topic and the process and in all of the the news cycle of it, because it's like at any point in probably anybody's life, someone could pick a moment and say, you're an idiot. Why would you do that? And it's like these people, granted, a lot of them are scumbags, but you pick anyone's life, pick a moment in time, it's like, you're a moron, you're a terrible person, why'd you do that? But so I don't like to get into the weeds on the news cycle of it, I guess, is my general thought on that process, or on that topic.
And a question I've actually never asked anybody personally, how important is your reputation to you? Like, and how
100%.
how do you view that, and like how do you keep it protected?
Yeah, I mean, I view it as it's like the most important thing. So for me, it's like, and I'm still early in my career, right? So I plan to do this for a long time. We've been successful so far. We didn't buy a deal from July of 22 until February of this year, because I didn't find anything that I thought fit our investment criteria, or what we were really looking to do. And then we sold 3 deals that all went well last year. And then now this year we bought 5. So it's been a good year from an acquisition standpoint. But yeah, reputation is everything to me. It's like I feel like if I do a bad deal, or if I were to do something stupid, it basically takes me out of business for life, is sort of how I view it. Not sort of, it is how I view it. It's like if I make a mistake, and if I do something stupid, then I'm out of business for life, and that's not really an option for me.
And the most fascinating, if I could spend my whole career, because I love a good mindset thing, if I could spend my whole career just diagnosing and asking questions of multifamily investors who don't buy, I think it's one of the most fascinating things in the world, when you had the discipline to not pull the trigger. How do you keep yourself emotionally stable to be disciplined, to not feel like you have the itch to just buy something to buy something.
Yeah, that is the hard thing, because it's like, in theory, we could buy something. It's like, if you can get it funded, you can buy it. And we could get it funded, right? We can get the debt, we can get the equity. All of our raises this year have filled like within an hour, besides one was the first one we raised for. I sent an email out on 2 p.m. on a Friday, and I had $1 million committed by 10 a.m. Saturday. And then all of them after that have had over $1 million committed in an hour and been full. These are smaller deals. So, it's like, in theory, I could fund a deal if I put it out, and you can, obviously make a model tell you whatever you want, right? A model or in Excel is always a lie. It's just a matter of how far off it is, and you can't get those perfectly accurate. But I don't know. I suppose for me to not buy, it's just like, I know deep down, if I was doing something bad, it's like, I don't know. I guess I just I don't have it in me. I wouldn't feel good about it. I'd feel weird about it. The other thing too is like, I'm personally guaranteeing these loans, and a lot of my family, like immediate family, is investors in my deals. So it's like, okay, I'm going to go personally guarantee the loan, and then I'm going to take my family's money, or some of it, right? Or some of my family and friends and people that I know and go to church with and everything else, and put their money into a bad deal. And that would just, it's just a terrible idea. So I sort of, for me, I've never really looked at it as an option. Like, hey, let me go do this deal real quick. I'll make, X amount of money and from an acquisition fee, and that'll be great. But I've never, like I said, I've never contemplated it, because I have too much to lose, I guess, from a relationship reputation standpoint. I have too much to lose to force something that I know at my core is a bad deal.
Mm-hmm. And what's kind of your rules when it comes to, like, I think syndication and kind of raising money can get extremely complicated. Like, give us like a basic breakdown of how you view like bringing in LPs, and do you like to keep it simple and just kind of, this is the way we roll? Different deals, different terms, obviously. But
no, I go same terms every deal. So I go same terms every deal, because I like to keep it simple. So it's like, I want to build, I want to build the relationship with my LPs that they know what to expect. So it's like, every new deal, they don't have to ask, what's the terms on this one? Hey, what's this and that on this one? So every deal is the exact same from a structure standpoint. And it wasn't always like this. I just, came up with this basically last year. And because before I would sort of tailor it to the deal. But yeah, so every deal is the same. So we do it 8 pref, 70-30. So 30% promote, 70% to the LPs with no adjustment. A lot of people will do a hurdle, and it's like, once you hit a 15, it drops to 50, but I just do 70-30 all the way through. My theory is that if I can, massively outperform, then they'll be around longer, and that's, good for everybody, versus trying for me to make all the money on one single deal. I had started my first couple of deals that I syndicated on my own. I guess the very first one I just did 80-20, no pref. And then after that, I was doing a 7 or 8% pref with a 50% promote, because that's what the guy that I had partnered with on the first deal did, and I didn't know any different, right? So to me, it's like, that's how you structure it. And then once I got into it and learned, like, 50% promote, and I got some pushback on it at one point, and so I decided to change it then. But yeah, so 8 pref, 70-30. We'll do a 2 or 3% acquisition fee. And then 1% asset management fee on the equity.
I think I talked to a lot of people. I think what impressed me the most about, and just so you are younger than me by 11 plus 12 years. So, but what impressed me the most about your generation, on the good side, not on the bad side of this, is that you were making $200,000 a year, and you're saying to yourself, like, not that you need all the trappings of it, but you're saying, this isn't good enough. It's not. I don't even think it was the money. I think it was how you're making the money, right? I've coached a lot of young guys who make good money, but they're like, this isn't enough for me. I want, full control of my life. I want options. I want more freedom. I want wealth. I think that's what excites me the most about kind of the mindset. Where would you say, where did you learn it from? Was it your parents? Is it just kind of being around the right mentors? Like where did you pick up this kind of poise you have at 30 years old?
Yeah, my dad for sure. So my dad worked for Ford for 25 years, and then he started his company. So he owns a playground supply company. They're a park and rec supplier basically in the Midwest, and he started that when it was like 2006. I would have been, let's see, 12, I think, in 2006. But so like I saw him through the early years of him building that business. He would get up at 4 a.m, go to the office, and then he'd get home at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and so I saw that process of like sort of what it takes to build something, and I thought it was cool, and I think that was super important, right? 12 to 15, 16, 17, it's like those are your super impressionable years where I think what you are exposed to really sticks with you, and so that was a big thing for me, was realizing that, hey, going out and starting your own business, is a good path to take. At the beginning, it's not like he was making a ton of money, or he took a massive pay cut from what he was at Ford, and I'm the third of 9 kids, so it's like, okay, very stable, secure job at Ford to nothing.
God bless your mom.
Like, to selling swing sets. So, it worked out. He's super happy that he did it. But a big reason why he did it was because it was more fun, and he always wanted to do something that was more fun, rather than working for Ford and doing that which he enjoyed it and whatever. But that looked like more fun to him, so he decided to go do that. And so that's sort of what I've taken to, is like everything that I do, it started because, hey, that looks like fun. Like, I'm going to go do that. And then, certainly there's parts of it that are miserable or you don't like as much. But in general, I love what I do. It's like, I have so much fun. I meet great people. It's a blast. So, I saw that. And then as a real estate agent, you're constantly chasing the next deal. There's nothing, you're not building equity. You're not doing anything, right? So to me, that was a big factor to getting into apartments with the big picture goal of being full scale private equity at some point, is because you're building something that you can eventually sell and you can eventually retire from. And then you have the time freedom, right? When I was an agent, if I missed a call, it's like, okay, I might miss 20 grand because I missed one phone call. That was a very realistic scenario. Happened several times, actually. And so I was never on vacation and whatever, but now it's the time freedom is significantly better. And it's, I'm 30 years old, I'm married. So, I sort of look at it as like, you try to like pull yourself back into reality, because I don't live like a normal life probably for a 30-year-old by most means, but it's not, it's not anything too insane.
I would say one of the wildest things as you get older. I was 2 to 3 weeks at the helm, CEO of HVAC plumbing and electric company. And the first thing I did was call my father. And I said, "You did this for 44 years and raised us and did sports?" I was like, "You're out of your mind." I was like, how did you run your small business, your dentist practice, and grow it? And it was very successful. Like, and you raised us? Like, I was like, all the respect in the world.
Yeah.
Like, it was a real eye-opening moment for me. Full circle.
Yeah. Especially, granted, my mom stayed at home, obviously, but 9 kids is no, it's no small responsibility, I guess. And we were all at home too. So like I was 12, my oldest brother was 15, and the youngest was 2, maybe. I don't know. Okay. Somewhere in that range.
It's amazing. I love it. I was at my buddy's house in Nashville this past week when I was there for business. and he's negotiating like a huge land deal while the 3-year-old is butt naked running through the house, and the other one's on rollerblades inside the house. And he just looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, this is my life, negotiating $1 million+ land deals while the inmates are running around." I just think it's so funny. It's
Yeah.
it's just so funny. It's like where we are. It's like I step out of the podcast or the office, and it's like, your family's right there. It's just a wild time, especially a lot of people working from home. So if people want to find you, they want to track you down, they want to reach out to you, how will they do that?
Yeah. I mean, social media is the easiest, the fastest. Twitter, I'm most active. I go in spurts of being active on Twitter, but and then Instagram, LinkedIn, and I'm less active on Instagram, but LinkedIn is I'll post on there once in a while and talk with people quite a bit on LinkedIn and Twitter. And then we have I do a weekly newsletter. So that's been, a major key to building our business also has been the weekly newsletter. So I talk about the actual like specifics in our deals, the numbers, the debt. I call it the capital stack. So I talk about the debt and the equity and the terms of the debt, what we did for each deal, how we found it, what we liked about it, what the business plan was, and then how it's going today. So actually our last newsletter, actually I'm sending it out today, is a quarterly portfolio review. So I dig into all of our deals that we currently own and say, okay, where was it when we bought it? Where is it today? So people have enjoyed that as far as sort of get a real-time investor update in a sense. Like it's watered down some, but we give our investors the full scope. But I like to give high level to everybody because I have so many people that have expressed interest in investing, and then they sort of want to watch. Usually I'll talk to people, or a lot of times I'll talk to people, they'll pass on the first deal that comes up and they'll want to watch and see how that goes. And it's like, it's hard because real estate, you don't know until like a value add deal. It's like, it's going to be 3 years till we know if this is for like as good as expected or not as good, or, it's going to be a 3-year process until this sort of plays out. So I've had a lot of people that enjoy reading those. But yeah, so the newsletter is the capitalstacknewsletter.com, and then Twitter, LinkedIn, any social media, I'm active.
Your comment about the Excel spreadsheet was my favorite because Chris Grinzik, who's a friend of mine, he said one time on a call, he said, "You're over here doing 5-year projections on your Excel spreadsheet, and nobody knows what's going to happen past 6 months. It's a waste of time."
Yeah.
And they bought like $600 million worth of real estate. So I just think it's the truth. I think it's just there for guardrails. It's not really
right.
the truth per se.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's like real estate is a simple business. It's like you buy it for this, you're going to have this much into it, right? Say you're into it for $100 a door, and you're going to want rent to be like $1,100-$1,200, and that's going to be a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to keep it simple, like fundamentally, if I can explain it in terms like that, then it makes sense. If you get into all this complications, and that's when you really get into the weeds, and I generally will avoid those deals.
Yes, agreed. Guys, if you got some favoritism, some advice, some great things from this episode, send it around to a friend. Rate us in reviews, and we'll see you next time.